can you please help me in welcoming Las Vegas Raider, Heisman Trophy winner, Haas graduate, and Cal Bear forever, Fernando Mendoza.
He's big, he's super smart, and he can spin the pill. That is everything I think most quarterback or offense coordinators are looking for.
In comes Mendoza, a guy that's capable of executing that offense. Fernando Mendoza is a generational prospect.
We all believed he'd be a great NFL quarterback.
Mendoza can make every throw on the field, as we saw consistently against the nation's top defenses last year.
He's tough, he's accurate, I think he's sneaky athletic.
What we saw last year with Mendoza is his decision-making was the best in the biggest moments of the biggest game.
Mendoza in trouble! It's out! Touchdown! Wow!
Nobody wanted this kid. Yale offered him a scholarship, and he said yes. Not Alabama, not Ohio State, not Georgia. Yale, an Ivy League school. That was a ceiling everyone had for Fernando Mendoza. He was a three-star recruit, overlooked, underestimated, the kind of guy college football analysts scroll past. And yet, just a few years later, he stood on a stage in New York City holding the Heisman Trophy.
The winner of the 2025 Heisman Trophy is Fernando Mendoza.
He led Indiana University, Indiana, to a perfect 16-0 season and a national championship. And then, he went number 1 overall in the NFL draft of the Las Vegas Raiders.
With the first pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Fernando Mendoza, quarterback, Indiana.
So I have O&E question for you today. How good is Fernando Mendoza? Actually, buckle up, because the answer is going to shock you.
Like, Mendoza might be in a situation similar to Cam Ward where he might have talent from the 101 position.
He's just a very mature young man, and he's got a bright future. And, you know, everybody coming into the league, there's still so much room for development. Nobody's a finished product. I don't care whether you're won the Heisman or you're the 199th pick in the draft. It's what do you do when you get there? How important is this to you? Are you obsessed with your job? Are you obsessed with being the best you can be? These young men, whether it's Fernando or a lot of other players that were on the field the other night.
From nobody to somebody. Let's start from the very beginning, because context is everything with this story. Fernando Gabriel Mendoza V, yes, the fifth, was born on October 1st, 2003, in Boston, Massachusetts. He grew up in Miami, Florida, the son of a Cuban-American family whose grandparents fled Cuba after the revolution in 1960 with nothing but their faith and their work ethic. That Cuban hunger, that immigrant grind, it runs deep in the Mendoza bloodline. And Fernando carries it everywhere he goes. He attended Christopher Columbus High School in Miami, where he played both football and tennis, a two-sport athlete who was quietly getting better every single day. By the time he graduated, he'd led his team to a state semifinal appearance with an 11-3 record and thrown 16 touchdowns in 2 seasons. But here's the crazy part. Nobody cared. No 5-star offer. No sec courtship. No ESPN recruitment special. The biggest offer on his board? Yale, an Ivy League school that doesn't even offer athletic scholarships in the traditional sense. He committed to Yale. Then, and here's where fate stepped in, a quarterback named Justin Martin, who had committed to Cal Berkeley, flipped to UCLA. Cal suddenly had a hole at QB. They called Mendoza. He flipped his commitment and headed west Berkeley. At the time, nobody thought much of it. Nobody except Fernando Mendoza. The foundation. His first year at Cal in 2022, he redshirted, learned the system, studied, waited. Then in 2023, Week 6 against Oregon State.
The first and goal, Cal. Mendoza keeps it. Fernando Mendoza walks in. Touchdown.
He got his first career start. He completed 21 of 32 passes for 207 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not jaw-dropping numbers, but composed, confident, in control. The coaching staff saw enough. They named him the starter going forward. And in 8 starts as a redshirt freshman, he completed 63% of his passes for 1,708 yards and 14 touchdowns. He dragged California to a 6-7 record and a bowl game appearance. With his arm, on a mediocre Cal team, 2024 was even better. He beat Auburn, in Week 2. He won ACC Quarterback of the Week in back-to-back games. He set career highs in passing yards and completions. By the end of his Cal career, Fernando Mendoza was the school's all-time leader in completion percentage at 66.4%. Let that sink in. California football has been around for over 100 years. Hundreds of quarterbacks have played there, and Fernando Mendoza, the three-star Ivy League commit overlooked kid from Miami, is the most accurate passer in the history of that program. But here's the thing, he knew Cal wasn't the right stage. He wanted more. He wanted a national championship shot. He wanted to prove something on the biggest stage possible. So he made the most important decision of his life. He transferred to Indiana. One of the greatest college seasons ever. Now let me paint a picture for you. Indiana University football, historically one of the most irrelevant programs in the Big Ten. They hadn't won a Big Ten title since 1967. Hadn't been to a Rose Bowl since 1968. When people thought about Indiana football, they thought about early exits, mediocre seasons, and moral victories. And then Fernando Mendoza walked through the door. His one season as a Hoosier, and I want you to hear every single number I'm about to say. He started all 16 games. He led the FBS, the entire country, in passing touchdowns with 41. 41. He led the FBS in passing efficiency with a rating of 182.9. He had 48 total touchdowns accounted for, the most in the country. He completed 72% of his passes on the season. Indiana finished 16-0, undefeated, national champions. Mendoza won the Heisman Trophy, Indiana's first ever Heisman winner. He won the Maxwell Award. He won the Walter Camp Award. He was named AP College Football Player of the Year. In the national championship game against Miami, with the whole country watching, he led Indiana to a 27-21 victory and walked off the field as Offensive Player of the game. Think about what this means. The last Big Ten quarterback to win the Heisman was Troy Smith of Ohio State in 2006. That was nearly 20 years ago. And Mendoza ended that drought, wearing Indiana blue and red. He also did something no brother Gio had done in years. He and his backup, his actual younger brother Alberto, both threw touchdown passes in the same FBS game earlier that season. First brothers to do that since Brad and Austin Allen of Arkansas in 2015. This wasn't just a great season. This was one of the greatest individual quarterback seasons in the history of college football. Full stop. And here's what makes it even more impressive. He did it while also being a businessman. He graduated from UC Berkeley's Haas School of Business in 3 years, then enrolled at Indiana's Kelley School of Business. This guy was balancing film study, business classes, team leadership, and daily mass, all at the same time. Fernando Mendoza doesn't just play football. He commands everything around him. The man behind the arm. But here's where this story gets real. Because stats are one thing. Championships are one thing. But who Fernando Mendoza is as a person, that's what separates him from every other quarterback in this draft class. His mother, Elsa, was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis approximately 18 years ago. She hid it from her young sons at first, not wanting them to worry, not wanting them to carry her weight. She now uses a wheelchair, and she has been at every single one of Fernando's games. When Fernando accepted the Heisman Trophy, he looked at his mother in the front row and said these words, "Mimi, this is your trophy as much as it is mine. You've always been my biggest fan. You're my light. You're my why. Your sacrifices, courage, love, those would be my first playbook."
Mommy, this is your trophy as much as it is mine. You taught me that toughness doesn't need to be loud.
His mother later wrote him a letter for the Players Tribune that said, "You've made it so much easier, and you've done that in the sweetest, strongest, most Fernando way possible, by making me feel seen." Fernando and his brother Alberto have raised over $160,000 for the National MS Society. He launched the Mendoza Family Fund in partnership with the organization. Before the Heisman ceremony, he partnered with Adidas to give $10,000 shopping sprees to 4 families affected by MS. He attends daily mass on game days. He leads team Bible studies. He's not just playing for fame or money. He's playing for his family, for his community, for Cuba, for every person told they weren't good enough. His idol is Tom Brady. And if you watch the way this kid carries himself, the calm, the precision, the zero ego, you start to understand why. This is a quarterback built from the inside out. Is he the real deal? Okay, let's talk football. Because at the end of the day, the Raiders are paying this man to win games in the NFL. So what does his actual game look like? Size and athleticism. 6'5", 225 pounds. That's ideal NFL quarterback size. He has a frame to take hits and keep throwing. He's not a Lamar Jackson scrambler, but he showed consistent mobility. He added rushing touchdowns and yards when needed throughout his college career. Accuracy. This is where Mendoza is elite. 66.4% career completion percentage at Cal, best in school history. 72% completion rate in his Heisman season at Indiana. He doesn't just throw completions, he throws catchable balls. His receivers don't have to adjust. The ball arrives where their hands are, when their hands are there. Football IQ. He completed his business degree in 3 years. He processes the game like a chess player. Former coaches and teammates describe his pre-snap reads as freakish. He sees a defense, identifies a blitz, and adjusts at the line like a veteran. He reminds scouts of Joe Burrow coming out of LSU, the calm, the command, the efficiency. Deep ball. His yards per attempt numbers are strong, and he showed the ability to drop the ball perfectly into stride for his receivers downfield. Not a gunslinger, more a surgical passer who only takes a shot when it's there. Leadership. He transferred to Indiana and immediately made it his program. Players followed him. The culture shifted. An 11-win school became a 16-0 national champion in 1 year. That doesn't happen without a quarterback who commands respect in the locker room. Weaknesses and questions, to be balanced, they're AIE things to watch. He played in college. We don't know how he handles an NFL defensive coordinator's blitz packages week after week. The Big Ten is not the NFL, and the Raiders, despite the top pick, have significant work to do on their roster around him. But the tools are all there, every single one. What happens next? So the Las Vegas Raiders selected Fernando Mendoza with a #1 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. He chose to wear number 15, the same number worn by Raiders legend Tom Flores, who was a quarterback and the first Hispanic head coach to win a Super Bowl. Flores personally gave Mendoza his blessing to wear it. That's not just a jersey number. That's a statement. He becomes the 5th Heisman Trophy winner drafted by the Raiders, joining Marcus Allen, Bo Jackson, Tim Brown, and Charles Woodson. In terms of legacy company, that's as good as it gets. The Raiders have struggled for years. They've been searching for their guy, the franchise quarterback who changes the culture, changes the record, changes the story of that franchise. Fernando Mendoza has done this before. At Cal, he made them better. At Indiana, he made them champions. Now in Las Vegas, the question is, can he do it at the hardest level in the world? If his track record means anything, if his character means anything, the answer is yes. He's not guaranteed to be Patrick Mahomes. Nobody is. But the ceiling is real. The foundation is real. The work ethic is real. And the chip on his shoulder, the 3-star kid, the Yale commit, the overlooked transfer, that is very real. Bet against him. The same way they always have. We know how that story ends. So, how good is Fernando Mendoza actually? Good enough to be the best player in all of college football. Good enough to win Indiana's first Heisman. Good enough to go 16-0 and win a national title that nobody saw coming. Good enough to be the #1 pick in the NFL draft. But here's what I believe makes Fernando Mendoza genuinely special. It's not the arm. It's not the IQ. It's not even the trophies. It's that every single time the world told him to sit down and be small, he stood up and got bigger. The story isn't over. It's just moving to Las Vegas. I don't know about you, but I cannot wait to watch what happens next. If you're new here, hit subscribe. We cover football the way it deserved to be covered. And drop in the comments, do you think Fernando Mendoza is a real deal? I'll see you in the next one.